to another episode of In the Kitchen with Baker Girl. Thank you, Jesus. It was another beautiful day to be in the kitchen. And today, I'm going to share with you one of my favorite summer snacks that uses green beans. Now, we all have seen green beans. They're in the farmer's market. Baskets are brimming over. Perhaps like me, you have neighbors who leave secret baskets of green beans on your doorstep. If you do, Dilly Beans is a perfect way to use up those green beans. You know, you can green beans, you freeze green beans, you cook them with some potatoes and have them for dinner, perhaps some cornbread on the side. But you can also turn them into dilly beans. Now, dilly beans is pickled green beans with a little hint of garlic and some dill. And that's what I'm going to be making today on my channel. Now, if you have not subscribed to my channel, please hit the subscribe button, like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned because this is canning season, this is preserving season, and we have got to put up all these delicious goodies while we can. So, stay tuned for the full video. Now, to make dilly beans, the ingredients really couldn't be any simpler, and I will be working once again out of the Ball Blue Canning book because this is a canner that we can, the book that we can all easily find. There are recipes online, and some of those are good, but just for ease of reference, I'll be canning, as I usually do, out of the Ball Canning book. Now, on chapter 56 on my book, for dilly beans, it says for 4 pints of dilly beans, which is what I have here. These are pint jars. You need 2 pounds of green beans. You also need 1/4 cup of canning salt. You need 2.5 cups of vinegar, 2.5 cups of water, 1 teaspoon of cayenne pepper divided, 4 cloves of garlic, 4 heads of dill, and it also has an option for Ball pickled crisp. Now, I don't have any fresh dill, but I do have dill seed, and that is what I will be adding. The flavors will be the same. And, of course, I have my garlic. And I'm just going to use regular white vinegar. You can use apple cider vinegar. It will make your green beans just a little bit brown. And I'm also going to add a little bit of sugar to mine. Now, if you notice, the Ball Canning book does not call for sugar at all, but I like a little bit of sugar in my dilly beans, so I'm just going to add a little bit of sugar. It won't affect the recipe. It won't do anything weird. It'll just, to kind of help tame down a little bit of the tart sour from the vinegar. Now, these are the Blue Lake variety of green beans, and as I say, where I come from, people call them snaps. Now, they're called snaps because they're very easy to snap, and some of them have strings, some of them don't. This type does not have strings. Now, you do want to remove the 2 tip ends from your green beans, and that's what it means when it says trimmed. You can leave them whole like this, and they will fit nicer into the jar, or you can cut them in half and you'll get smaller pieces. If you're making the bean salad, like I talked about earlier, you could just snap them up into smaller pieces. But you do want to remove the snap ends, and you would just put these right into the jars and you're good to go. And this is very quick and very simple. A lot different than making canned green beans. So you want to wash your green beans, wash them well, and snap them. As I say, remove the tops and the bottoms. If you have a green bean that's extra long, say you may have one that would, like this one, it would be a little bit difficult for fitting into your jar. What you would do in that case is you would just snap off that excess and then save that. Don't throw that away. You can put that in and cook them just like you would cook a pot of green beans on the stove. Add potatoes, a little bit of Italian seasoning, some salt and pepper. You got some delicious green beans. But you want to make sure that your green beans will fit in your jar because sometimes you can get extra long green beans that are just too tall to go into the jar. And that's the simplest preparation method for your green beans. So I'm going to get these washed, get the ends trimmed, and then we'll be ready to move on to the next step. Now I have my pot of jars with hot water sterilizing on the stove. So just wash your jars, fill them up with water, fill the pot up with water, put the pot on the stove, and then just let that simmer away. You do want to bring up to a boil and let your let your jars boil for at least 10 minutes before you can call them sterilized. And then you can just put the heat on low and let them go until you're ready. You do want to have those jars ready because dilly beans, there's no waiting period. There's no soaking. There's none of that. Once you start, you just move right on. So I've got my washed beans here ready to go, and I left them long. As I said earlier, I wanted them to be long because I want them to fit right into the jars just like this. If you wanted to snap them, you can snap them. And I have here 10 cloves of garlic that I'm going to peel. Set my salt aside. And I'm just going to peel the garlic. And this goes, fairly quickly. You can cut the garlic in half or you can leave it whole, however you want to do it. You get a little bit stronger garlic flavor if you cut it in half than if you leave it whole. If you don't want or you don't have a lot of garlic, you can chop the garlic up and then add some chopped garlic to each jar of green beans. Okay, so there's the peeled garlic. Now we're ready to start mixing the pickling liquid. So we need 2.5 cups of vinegar. So go ahead and measure out 1 cup. And I have quite a record for splashing, so I'm going to try not to splash. So that's 1 cup of vinegar. And I love these little ceramic measuring cups that my aunties bought me. They're perfectly safe for using for canning because by them being ceramic, I don't have to worry about, working with vinegar. And that's another thing. Always use stainless steel or ceramic tools. That way you don't have to worry about any reaction. Okay. There's our 2.5 cups. Okay. And we need 2.5 cups of water. So I'm going to grab 2.5 cups of water. Okay, that's it for the vinegar. We can set that aside. So we've got that added in here. Let's put this in here. Now we need, the recipe calls for 1/4 cup of ball salt. So let's add that in here using my cute little spoons. There's the salt. Okay, get the salt mixed in, and this is just my addition. You don't have to. I'm going to add in 1/4 cup of sugar. Now you may say, there goes those Southerners again, putting sugar in everything. But no, the sugar just helps to kind of prevent your green beans from just being so sour, because they can be a little bit sour. They won't be sweet at all. They won't be sweet. They'll just have like a mellow pickled flavor instead of a very, very strong pickle flavor. And also too, that's why the recipe calls for half water, half vinegar, so they're not too sour. And another reason why you don't want to use straight vinegar is because it can make your green beans very tough if you do. So you want to tame the vinegar with a little bit of water, and in this case, a little bit of sugar. All right. Now, the dill seed, because we don't have, I'm using dill seed, I'm going to add this actually straight to each jar along with the garlic. If you add it in here, it would all run around and you really wouldn't, you wouldn't be able to find it per jar. So it's much easier to add it per jar. Now I'm going to bring this up to a boil. When it comes to a boil, I'm going to have everything ready and I'm going to go straight from here, the green beans, to the hot jars. That goes relatively quickly. So I'm going to bring this bowl up to a boil and come right back. All right, so the liquid is boiling. You want to stop it right when it comes to a boil because you don't want to start evaporating, boiling away your liquid. So you want to work with one jar at a time. Be very careful because the jars are hot. And I'm just going to take a handful of green beans. That vinegar, oh wow, that vinegar really gets to you. And the best way to do that is just to lay the jar down and pack your green beans into the jar just like that. You might want to get a better towel too. There we are. Pack them in. Oh wow, vinegar starts to get to your eyes. Okay, pack them in. You do want to pack. I mean, this is not where you have to worry about how many you're adding in here. You can pack them into your jar. Let's see here. This is the fun part. And now I'm just going to tuck in a clove of garlic into this jar because we've got it nicely packed. Tuck a clove of garlic in, and I'm also going to add in a 1/4 teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes to this jar, and about a 1/4 teaspoon of dill because they're dilly beans. Oh wow, that vinegar really gets your eyes. Okay, now for my ladle, I'm going to ladle the liquid right over my jar. So actually, matter of fact, I'm going to set that down because I think that's a little bit safer. And then just carefully ladle the liquid into each jar. Thank you, Jesus. Okay, and you may ask, can I double this? The answer is yes, you can. As a matter of fact, if I know anything about canning, I am going to need some more liquid. Let's see, I might be able to do this without the funnel. There we are. Okay, you want to leave about a 1/2 inch headspace. And that's perfect. You can always take your spoon and kind of push them down a little further. Okay, now I've got my clean rings. Just give it a nice little twist. There we are. You can see how pretty and clear it looks. And then just lower it down into the jar. And just keep going. Oh, I wasted some of my napkin. Okay. Just keep going. You do want to work relatively quickly just to make sure you keep everything hot. Pack them in. And dilly beans are delicious. If you've never tried them, this is a good introduction to them too. And you don't have to make dilly beans. You can make oregano beans. You can put tarragon in here. Dill is just the more common flavor. All right, I'll show you one more jar. Go ahead and drop in a clove of garlic and continue filling. Okay, and that's a little bit tugging, but that's kind of how you have to do it in order to get it all in there. Right, crushed red pepper flakes and the dill. There. Okay, and label in hot liquid. Remember, hot liquid goes into hot jars. Always. That way your jar doesn't crack. Okay. I'm being cautious because I'm not using the funnel for this. The funnel actually won't fit, so let's get label this in here. And I'm just going to repeat this process with each jar. You can have it in headspace. Okay, the last jar. Okay. And I do want to give you a few tips for canning in the summertime because we've had a heat wave here and it has been quite hot. So start early, maybe start in the morning. You can also, if you're up to it, you can do your canning at night when it's a little bit, say it's 70 degrees and not 90 degrees. Don't want to forget to add my garlic. I actually got some garlic left over. So yeah, start early if possible. And, just take precautions. Keep some water, cold water handy. Have some snacks handy if you're a snacker. Have some snacks ready for snacking. And then just, cut yourself a little bit of, a little bit of a grace period. Maybe not worry about cooking dinner if you're doing a lot of canning, especially if you're doing it in several batches. Maybe, have something light and simple for dinner. Maybe it's a good night to look in the back of the fridge and see what's in there that can be eaten. Oh, this green bean is too big. I think that's about as cram jam as I can get that one. But yeah, just take those extra precautions, a little extra forethought, and you should be absolutely fine. And another thing, there is no shame in taking a break. I'm not a fan of taking breaks when I'm canning. That's because I like to go ahead and get it done, because sometimes you can be doing a lot and you don't really want to push the can too far down the road. There's nothing wrong with taking a break. Just take a break. And you can always find those areas where you can take breaks. Say while your jars are sterilizing in the hot water and the water is heating, you can take that time to take a break, because it does take some time. Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and just pour. Spot on. All right. We're done with this. And the last jar and the last lid. Okay, now we're ready to get this in the canner and get the canner on the stove. Do they look so pretty? But they'll look even prettier once they're cooked, because the color will start to change in them. So I'm going to go ahead and get this on the stove and bring this up to the bowl. All right, the green beans are done. So I let them process in the canner for 12 minutes. The canning book says 10. I let these go for 12 minutes simply because some of these green beans were a little thicker than others. All right, pull them out. Always have something handy. All right, and always put them out on a clean towel, just because they are hot and they can leave water rings on anything if you just set them on your countertop. And my aunties gave me these beautiful kitchen towels, so I like to use them whenever I get the opportunity. Okay. There we are. So all the jars are out of the canner. They're too hot to touch now, but they look so good. And if you have an abundance of green beans, and say you've canned enough green beans, or you've frozen enough green beans, or perhaps you just want to find something else to do with your green beans, pickled green beans is the way to go, because this is quick, this is easy. If we were doing the traditional canned green beans, I would just now be getting green beans in the canner. So this is very speedy. Now, if you're doing multiple batches, you can start over again. This water is perfectly fine. So if you need to do another batch, you can just use this. However, make sure that you don't put cold jars into hot water. So rinse your jars out with some of the hot water, kind of get them used to it before you would then submerge them into your hot water. Now, by these being pickled, they have a bit of a longer shelf life than your average canned green beans, than say your pressure canned green beans. They have a shelf life of 6 months to a year. Can they last longer? Of course. I have green beans in the pantry that my mother canned in 2007, and those green beans are just as beautiful. And of course I would never eat them, but if I wanted to, I could. They look beautiful. And since my mother was an excellent canner, there's no worry about, the age or anything like that. Those green beans are perfectly fine. But these, I would give them about a year and 6 months, just because they're pickled, and pickled things have a tendency to last a little bit longer. Now, you want to let these cool completely before you store them away in your cellar or your pantry or your closet or wherever you keep your preserving stash. Now, you do want to let these sit to let the flavors kind of mellow. And I would recommend letting them sit at least 2 weeks in a cool, dark place, and just kind of let the flavors blend, because at this point they'll kind of be very they'll be tasteless and they won't really have picked up much of the vinegar flavor. So just set them aside and let the flavors marry. You can do this if you wanted to skip the whole canning process. You would do the same thing, only skip the water bath canning and just let the jars cool. You would need hot jars, hot liquid. And if you're going to do that method, you need to steam your green beans, because if you're not going to cook them for that 10 minutes, or in our case 12 minutes in the water bath canner, they won't have any time to cook. So this recipe works best for, if you're not going to can it, use steamed green beans. And in steaming them, just steam them until they're still crisp but slightly tender. And then pour your hot liquid over your hot beans into your hot jars, and then let them cool and store them in the refrigerator. And I would still give them about a week or two before I cracked open a jar to see what they taste like. So I hope you have enjoyed this video on canning and preserving. If you have, please share this video with your friends. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave a comment. What are you looking forward to canning this season? What are the things that you are planning to put away most? Because when you're canning, and one good thing about canning, it allows you to preserve and put away the foods that you eat. If you're not big on green beans, then maybe try cucumber pickles, or carrot pickles, or cauliflower pickles, or tomato pickles. It gives you the option of preserving the foods that you eat. So if you don't like green beans, don't feel pressured to can green beans just because that's what everybody does, is can green beans. And that is true, most people do. And green beans are very traditional. But can whatever the foods that you eat, because if you're not going to eat it, you don't really want to bother doing it. And I have canned some things that we're not really big on eating in the past, and it kind of just sat in the pantry. Like jelly, we're not big on jellies, and I have made jellies and then we didn't really eat the jellies. So this is a good opportunity for you to can the foods that you actually eat, and don't feel pressured to can those things that might be popular but isn't really your cup of tea. So I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I hope you will enjoy this canning and preserving season. And the good Lord willing, I will see you all again in another video. Take care, y'all. Keep on canning, keep on baking, keep on preserving. Bye.